Vampires have existed in horror for hundreds of years, from Nosferatu to Bram Stoker's infamous Dracula. Although the idea of an undead, immortal bloodsucker can be frightening to most, the fact that they are fictitious should bring you some comfort. The problem is, there are some people in the world who actually believe that they are real-life vampires. Now, they may not be able to turn into a bat and fly through your bedroom window, but they insist on drinking the blood of others to replenish their stock of eternal youth. Welcome back to Twisted Minds. My name is James, and today we take a look at the case of Rodderick Justin Ferrell, a 16-year-old cult leader who took the lifestyle of vampirism to a whole new deadly level, ultimately leading to his death sentence in 1998. Rodderick Justin Ferrell was born on March 28, 1980, in Murray, Kentucky. His mother, Sandra Gibson, was raised in a strict Christian home. Like her son, Sandra had also felt like an outsider all of her life. Her parents, Harold and Rosetta Gibson, frowned upon everything, including makeup, movies, and dancing, ideologies that she inherited in adult life. In an interview, Gibson said that she met Ferrell's father, Rick, in high school. She said that they dated for a year and a half before she found out she was pregnant with Rod. She and Rick were married and divorced shortly after Rod was born, which meant that Rodderick couldn't remember him as he got older. Growing up was rough for Rod, as his mother had trouble holding down jobs, moved frequently, and had many relationships, including a second short marriage. To add the cherry on top of an already dysfunctional cake, Sandra was an exotic dancer and sex worker, all whilst being part of a strictly religious family tree. Because of the uncertainty of where the next paycheck was coming from, Sandra and Rod often lived with her religious parents, although she told Rod he didn't have to listen to them. The reason for this was down to the claims that her own parents were mentally and emotionally abusive, and that their strict rules had made her life a living hell. Sadly, Rod was allegedly molested by his grandfather and his friends, claims that both his mother and her sister backed up by sharing similar experiences growing up. Although several family members came forward about the abuse, Rod's grandfather, Harold Gibson, was never charged with any crimes. After moving from Florida, Rod and his mother settled in an apartment, with Rod attending Callaway High School. It was here that he built relationships with several friends, including a student named Howard Scott Anderson. A boy named Jaden Stephen Murphy also attended Callaway High, who liked dressing in black and was known for his interest in the occult, Gothic culture, and belief in vampires. He was also the leader of a group of teenagers who all played the tabletop role-playing game Vampire: The Masquerade together. Think Dungeons and Dragons, but with fewer dragons and more spiky teeth. While playing, the group would talk about their experiences and beliefs, smudging the lines between their fictional game characters and themselves. Over time, they began stating their rules and ideologies. For example, they said they wouldn't kill animals or humans for blood, but would engage in consensual bloodletting. To do this, each member of the group cut themselves with a razor blade and allowed the others to taste it. Regardless to say, Murphy and the rest of his gang stuck out like a sore thumb in the conservative, devoutly Christian community. Other students noticed the strained group and decided that it should be Rod Ferrell who should fight their leader. When the two came face to face, however, they realized they both had a lot in common and became friends. In January of 1996, Murphy invited Ferrell to cross over, which was an initiation ritual for the vampire clan. To do this, Murphy and Ferrell went to the local cemetery, cut themselves with razor blades, and drank each other's blood. Afterwards, Ferrell and Murphy sat in meditation among the gravestones. Months later, Murphy noticed that Ferrell's behavior became erratic, even too much for the leader of a vampire cult. Murphy eventually cut off contact after the two had been walking outdoors together one day to talk. While enjoying the fresh air, a kitten approached Ferrell, which he pet softly. Suddenly, the cat scratched him. In a fit of rage, Ferrell lifted the kitten and launched it at a tree, killing it instantly. Shortly after, in the first week of November 1996, puppies were found mutilated in the back of the Callaway County Humane Society in Murray. Rod was brought in for questioning, but the teen denied any involvement and no evidence ever came to light. Around the same time as the animal mutilation, Rod was having a chaotic home life, which was made worse by the use of PCP, LSD, and heroin. His mother, Sandra Gibson, said that Rod became violent when high. With that being said, his friend said that his mother was just as violent toward her son. In fact, one of his friends once recalled a time where Sandra grabbed Rod by his hair and trashed his room. She also shouted abusive remarks, including telling him that he had ruined her life, words that no child wants to hear. It wasn't just Rod who got the blunt of Sandra's rage. She also accused Murphy of taking her baby away. In an interview, he backed up Rod's claims about his poor home life, also saying that his mother gave her son no stability. In May of 1996, Callaway High School suspended Rod for skipping school too often, smoking on campus, and being disruptive in class. At this time, Sandra filed a beyond parental control report on her son, saying that he was verbally abusive, threatened to kill her, cut himself multiple times with razor blades, and was involved in a satanic cult. Things eventually reached a complete breaking point between Jaden Murphy and Rod Ferrell after a physical fight broke out in September of 1996. Rod had threatened his former friend, which led to Murphy violently pushing Rod up against a wall. As a result of the scuffle, Murphy was sent to jail for 6 months. Things get more disturbing when Sandra, Rod's mother, was charged with soliciting rape and soliciting sodomy. You see, Sandra had sent sexually explicit letters to Jaden Murphy's 14-year-old brother, Jamie. If that's not bad enough, it was also discovered that she had created a shrine in her house for the young boy, with pictures, candles, and incense. Understandably, Rod was less than impressed with her actions, completely humiliated by his mother. In the letter sent to the 14-year-old, Sandra ironically expressed that she wanted to become a vampire, behavior she bashed her son for. In the letters, Sandra wrote, "I long to be near you, for your embrace. Yes, Jamie, to become a vampire, to be a part of the family, immortal and truly yours forever." After Murphy threw him out of the vampire group, Rod created one of his own with Howard Scott Anderson, Dana Cooper, and his girlfriend, Charity Kesey. From there, things went downhill quickly. One night, Rod met a 15-year-old girl at a local cemetery and crossed her over with the blood-sucking ritual. The recollection from Heather gets a little strange to say the least, with the girl later saying in an interview that after the process, she began to have flying dreams, where she was flying low to the ground with her wings flapping. She then flew down the street of a suburban neighborhood following Rod in a creature form. After crossing over, Ferrell had a sexual relationship with Heather's best friend, Janine. Heather and Janine were close friends who often talked on the phone, discussing Rod's bizarre tales of being immortal. He continued to tell the girls stories of his life during the 1500s as a French aristocrat, stories that they began to believe with how persuasive he was. In an interview, Janine described an occasion where Rod cut himself in front of an altar in his bedroom and made the girl drink it. Eventually, Rod and his mother returned to Kentucky, where they lived previously. Despite the distance, Ferrell and the girls continued their relationship over the phone. After people heard about the supernatural events surrounding Heather's crossover at the cemetery, the rest of the outcast teens believed that Rod was an actual vampire. His chaotic, unstable, and abusive upbringing, as well as the substance abuse fueled by delusion of power, had now manifested into a force that drew people to him, the making of a perfect cult leader. The group would eventually take a trip to Florida, where dark fantasies became a reality, with two innocent people paying the ultimate price for it. Ferrell, along with his gang members, left Murray, Kentucky on November 22nd, planning to pick up Heather and Janine in Florida before moving on to New Orleans. Shortly after arriving at Heather's home, Howard Scott Anderson's Buick got a flat tire, which resulted in Rod choosing to steal Heather's parents' car instead, with the girl meeting them down the road so that she was not seen to be involved. While this was happening, Ferrell and Anderson got out of the car and stayed behind while Heather went with the other members of the gang to collect the other girl, Janine, who showed no interest in running away. According to all accounts, after getting out of the car, Ferrell and Anderson entered Heather's house through the garage, Ferrell picking up a crowbar before going in. Once inside the house, the 16-year-old bludgeoned Heather's father, Rick, as he slept on the living room sofa in front of the TV. After he was done with Rick, Ferrell came face to face with Ruth. She asked the teen what he wanted, but Ferrell didn't answer as he stepped toward her. Ruth quickly tossed hot coffee at him and scratched at his face. Despite fighting hard, Ruth was also killed with a crowbar. Now, according to Rod, he didn't want to kill her until she began scratching him. Just like the incident with the kitten, pure rage took over. Anderson later said that he stood and watched both murders in silence. After Ferrell killed the couple, he took Rick's Discover card and the couple's other vehicle, a Ford Explorer, and met up with Kesey, Cooper, and Heather. It was Heather's sister, Jennifer, who discovered the bodies of her parents, lying in puddles of blood. Although that would be a horrific thing to come across, in her 911 call, she sounded calm and subdued due to the incredible shock she had received. In yet another sick twist to this tale, Heather wasn't told that her parents were dead until later, meaning she would continue to worship the teenager who had brutally killed her parents with a crowbar. After the murders, the police put out warrants for Wendorf, Ferrell, Anderson, Kesey, and Cooper after clues led to the cult gang being responsible. When the group eventually ran out of money, Charity Kesey, Rod's girlfriend, called her grandmother who knew all about the Wendorf murders. Wasting no time, she called the authorities and told them that she had agreed to wire money to Howard Johnson outside of Baton Rouge, Louisiana. The Baton Rouge Police Department were hot on their trail and waited for the group of vampires to return to their hotel before arresting them. The four were held at the Baton Rouge jail for a week before being extradited back to Florida, where they were initially booked at the Lake County Jail and later moved to a juvenile facility in Ocala. Once in custody, Rod Ferrell confessed to killing Rick and Ruth in a very graphic detail. To give an insight into the severity of the attack, the victim's autopsy revealed that Rick had 22 wounds in total, resulting in multiple skull fractures and brain lacerations. He also had a wound on the right side of his chest and the letter V marked on his body. Ruth had 23 wounds in all, 16 of them to the head. Ferrell's DNA was discovered under the fingernails of Ruth, as well as a shoe print belonging to the teen, evidence that would be damning for the young killer. Police initially suspected that Ferrell and Heather had planned the brutal killings together, but Cooper and Kesey told them that Heather had no idea. These testimonies were enough to discredit two witnesses that claimed that Heather had mentioned that she wanted her parents dead. Rod's mother, Sandra, even claimed that she had heard Heather ask her son to kill her parents, a statement she took back after failing a polygraph test. Heather was eventually released, with a grand jury deciding she was innocent. Everyone else in the vampire gang pleaded guilty to their involvement in attempted cover-up of the murders. Justin Rod Ferrell initially received a death sentence, which was eventually reduced to life in prison. Howard Scott Anderson also received life without parole, while Dana Cooper received 17.5 years, and Charity Kesey got 10.5 years. Although creatures of paranormal can be scary, it's human beings that we should be wary of. Stories are just stories until people bring the monsters from the pages of fiction to life. What I find most interesting about this case is how Ferrell managed to brainwash those around him and control others. He even got people to see him and themselves as flying demons through the sky. Now, that's next level hypnotism. Thanks for tuning in to Twisted Minds. That was the case of Rodderick Justin Ferrell. And why don't you go ahead and click on one of the two videos on your screen for another one of our videos.